Kamala Harris says Florida rules on Black history pushed by Ron DeSantis are propaganda. Washington. Vice President Kamala Harris said extremists want to replace history with lies as she traveled to Florida on Friday to assail Republican efforts to overhaul educational standards, plunging into a battle over schooling that has rippled through classrooms around the country. "They dare to push propaganda to our children," she said in Jacksonville. "This is the United States of America. We're not supposed to do that." Her trip came 2 days after the Florida Board of Education approved a revised Black history curriculum to satisfy legislation signed by Gov. Ron DeSantis, a Republican presidential candidate who has accused public schools of liberal indoctrination. The new standards include instruction that enslaved people benefited from skills that they learned. "How is it that anyone could suggest that in the midst of these atrocities that there was any benefit to being subjected to this level of dehumanization?" Harris asked. She did not mention DeSantis by name, instead referring to so-called leaders. However, the speech was another example of how Harris has been the White House point person for addressing cultural issues such as race, schooling, and abortion that DeSantis has taken on in the governor's office and on the campaign trail. In Salt Lake City on Friday, DeSantis doubled down on earlier arguments that the new curriculum was needed to prevent liberal indoctrination and accused Harris of attempting to demagogue and politicize history. He said he wasn't involved in devising the Board of Education standards, but defended the components concerning how enslaved people benefited. "They're probably going to show some of the folks that eventually parlayed being a blacksmith into doing things later in life. But the reality is, all of that is rooted in whatever is factual," he said. Earlier, DeSantis accused the Biden administration of being obsessed with his state as it ignores other problems like border security and crime. Harris, the first Black person to serve as vice president, spoke from the Ritz Theater and Museum, located in a historically African-American neighborhood of Jacksonville. She described true patriotism as fighting for a nation that will be better for each generation to come, and she said schools would better prepare students for the world if they don't gloss over historical crimes. "Let us not be seduced into believing that somehow we will be better if we forget," she said. "We will be better if we remember. We will be stronger if we remember." Christian Ziegler, chairman of the Florida Republican Party, said Harris was out to lecture Floridian parents that their children belong to the government, and the government has a right to indoctrinate and sexualize our children. He said the government overreach on parental rights has already been overwhelmingly rejected in Florida. President Joe Biden and Harris have pitched their re-election campaign around preserving freedoms, and they view education issues as one way to highlight Republican extremism. In a video announcing his bid for a second term, Biden warned about Republicans dictating what health care decisions women can make, banning books, and telling people who they can love, all while making it more difficult for you to be able to vote. Jacksonville is a rare bright spot for Democrats in Florida, a longtime swing state that has become increasingly safe for Republicans. Donna Deegan, a Democrat, was elected as the city's mayor in May, and Harris tried to boost morale among the party faithful on Friday.